This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, as the clock is ticking in the right direction, we're left with only one day to say goodbye to the month of April. How are you welcoming May? Because this week is also another week for us to get into context with what the world is likely to provide to us. But yet again, Good Morning Uganda returns and in full swing to make sure that we give you details from the world of news locally and internationally. But not only that, we also take you through different topical discussions and analysis that is highly appreciated. On the 29th of April 2024, we are here for our live broadcast of Good Morning Uganda, Nile Avenue. So, to speak, we are live and you, our viewer, are on time just to wake up with us. Just run a little bit more of 32 minutes off 6 o'clock. That means we have 28 minutes to the hour of 7. And here we are to make sure that you, our viewer, you, a Ugandan, and anyone else who is not Ugandan but is always glued onto Good Morning Uganda. We do have a very huge follower in Zambia who always wakes up with us. We're actually 1 hour ahead of them, but he's always watching the show. But nonetheless, here is Good Morning Uganda. I am Joram Paul Sonko. Merab is with me. Merab Cherotich Chepsikor. Yes. And I've got the names right this time around. A very good morning, Merab.
Good morning, Sonko. I'm very happy and excited to be here with you this morning. Hope you had a lovely weekend. I hope our viewers had a lovely weekend as well. And we are excited that we get to take you through your morning and look at some of the stories that have made headlines and further discuss them, dissect them, and yes, just having you through this morning.
And well, speaking of stories that have been making headlines throughout the weekend, on Friday, there was an interesting report, by the way. A 66-year-old was arrested for defiling his 15-year-old granddaughter.
Oh, yes.
When you look at some of these cases here in Uganda, it's quite alarming, really. It shouldn't be the story we can easily start up on a Monday,
yes.
But you get to realize that it was something that really sparked up a very huge outcry from the feminists, from different people from the religious, side of things, trying to look into how the society is actually changing. Because this particular relationship is something that you wouldn't wish to have. As a granddaughter, you would expect your grandfather to be taking you through life and trying to prepare you for the future. But again, him trying to disorganize your future is not something that you would want. And the gentleman in question is Peter Egesa, who is a fish trader and resident of Buhonge village, Buyaga sub-county in Busia district, who was arrested. And well, that is not something that you would wish for your granddaughter, honestly.
Of course, definitely. And I agree with the people who came out and were not happy about this, the outcry to the public. They should, this is something very immoral. Our grandparents are supposed to protect us.
It's very true.
But this is a person who took advantage of a little girl. So it's quite unfortunate. But justice should be served for the child, and he should face the law.
Well, and on a good note is that the police came in already, or the authority already stepped up to ensure that law prevails. And this is how beautiful the situation can get, so that this 15-year-old can get justice. And clearly giving a direction that there is no room for defilement, no room for rape in this our country. So Any case of that nature, you are free to report. Mara, what really stood out for you along the weekend?
Well, along the weekend, we have a story that comes in from all the way from Kasese, where the members of parliament actually petitioned the president to halt the closure of the hospital, Kilembe Hospital, that is along the banks of River Nyamwamba. It has been prone to flooding, and due to this, the government wants to close down the hospital, but the MPs argue that this is going to affect the services to the people of the area. The Kilembe Mines Hospital was opened in 1951 by the Cobalt and Copper Company. It was opened to help serve the people of the community, but the mine eventually closed in about 1981, but the hospital continued serving the community. But as we have seen the previous years, there have been a lot of floods that affect this hospital, so government wants to close it down. The MPs still argue that if the hospital is closed down, it will affect how the people receive the medical services, and will have to force them to go to Mbarara or Fort Portal to acquire these services. So it's been an outcry from the members of Kasese, residents of Kasese, to the members of parliament to request the president to halt its closure. But
well, when you look at the reason behind the closure is pretty much the government trying to be a little bit more proactive, not reactionary at the end of the day, so that at least we do not have people dying in this hospital in case of any sort of disaster. Because speaking about disasters and how climate change is actually highly impacting and making waves across the African continent, our neighbors in Kenya are facing it rough when it comes to the flooding in there. Those in the capital, Nairobi, can fully testify to this, because when you look at some of the images coming along over social media, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is one of those that have highly been affected. And that means it does affect the flights for the, inland Kenya, and then also international flights. And when you look at the number of flights that the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport handles, you wouldn't wish them to be in such a situation. And many of those who are living in different areas or residential areas in Nairobi are also highly affected by this flooding that continues to grow, that continues to proceed. But then not only that, the Kenyan President William Ruto also further promised that the Kenyan government is going to work very hard to ensure that the Kenyans survive the effects of these floods that are highly thumping the people in Kenya. But also, Mary, there's an interesting report before we get into our local stories here, rotating around daughters beating an 89-year-old mother to death over land sale.
Oh yes, it's quite unfortunate that these daughters of this 89-year-old woman had to go and beat up their mother together with accomplices who happened to be her grandchildren. They actually beat her and maybe realized it had gotten out of hand and took her to hospital, but upon arrival at the hospital, she was pronounced dead.
Tough times for the African parents, if you're to look at that, because you always wake up in the morning to take the children to school, or you hustle hard to take your daughters to school. Why? Because you want them to have a better future, and the better future means they can wake up, make their own businesses, make their own money, so that they do not feel entitled to your own things that you worked for. Well, of course, the entitlement comes in if at all someone is actually going to take over as a heir to to the family property, but it's not something that all the children really have to focus on moving forward. Well, we do understand the economic situations in the country do not support many to depend on themselves, but killing your parent, beat your mother or father just because you want to take over land isn't something human, if you're to ask me. But that aside, we have a new week here ahead of us. It's the same week where we'll be celebrating Labor Day, or Labor's Day, International Labor's Day, where Uganda will be joining the rest of the world to celebrate the Labor's Day, a day where the workers are highly celebrated. And for those of you who are waking up in the morning today and hitting the road to ensure that you get going and catch that one on a Monday that will definitely be very busy if you're moving around in Kampala. On Wednesday, we shall be celebrating you entirely. And it's now time for us to check into the world of our local news this morning to see what we've gathered for you along the weekend and what has been making headlines in the last 24 hours. Well, we start with the government, which has plans to establish vocational institutions at every sub-county as one to assess the number of many students who drop out of school and can't have a decent living in the field of employment. Now, many skills training centers have also been put in place under State House, and these train young boys and girls programs that have seen over 5,000 youth and have been able to establish their own jobs in the field of home economics, bricklaying, among others. Now we talk matters street children, because now the National Children Authority has organized a community dialogue in Mbale City with religious leaders, police, cultural leaders, local council leaders to address the increasing number of street children. The National Children Authority boss, Martin Kiza, decried the increasing child neglect by the parents as something that is very critical and clearly needs to be looked into. Now, at least over 25,000 children are on the streets across Uganda, up from 15,000 in 2014, which in a range of 10 years is a very huge increase. And child neglect is also something that the government is trying hard to fight. Well, now away from that, we talk matters alcohol addiction, as the Commissioner of Mental Health from the Ministry of Health, Hafsa Lukwata, has advocated for more sensitization and awareness about the dangers of alcohol. Lukwata says more sensitization initiatives might reduce the increasing numbers of mental health patients in facilities. She was officiating launch of a book titled Higher Powers, Alcohol and After in Uganda's capital city. The launch was held at Makerere University, and the book Higher Powers, Alcohol and After in Uganda's capital city gives context to multiple persons suffering with alcohol addiction. Recent reports from the World Health Organization do estimate that Uganda currently consumes 12.2 liters of alcohol per person annually. And then this, according to the book author, needed urgent interventions to reduce consumption, as stakeholders call for more sensitization and awareness about the dangers of alcohol. Now, AFSA also noted how Ministry of Health is developing guidelines for proper handling of the surging numbers of mental patients in rehabilitation centers. The study was conducted within Kampala over a period of 4 years, and over 300 people were consulted. That is from alcohol addiction. Now, lastly, from the local scene this morning, we turn our focus on girl child in Kayunga, because the leaders in Kayunga are complaining about the number of girls who get pregnant before they are old enough, and most of them do not go to hospitals and give birth in Bamulerwa. Now, Businje Oliver, who is Kayunga Deputy Health Officer in charge of Children and Women's Affairs, said many women take medication in hospitals, but unfortunately they do not return to give birth in hospitals. So they look for traditional birth helpers during the SEM. And Kayunga District celebrated Women's Day at Bukamba Health Center 3 in Nazigo Town Council. Deputy District Health Officer Olive Businje, who is in charge of Children and Women's Affairs, pointed out that the challenge of teenage pregnancy is at 19% in Kayunga District. And now more measures by the government to ensure that this comes to an end is something that is moving on and on. Well, away from the local scene, now Merab takes us through the world of news internationally.
Over to our international scene, we go straight to Australia, where the citizens of Australia call for tougher laws on violence against women after killings. Rallies have taken place across Australia in response to a wave of recent violence against women. Demonstrators want gender-based violence to be declared a national emergency and stricter laws put in place to stop it. The Minister Anthony Albanese said the issue was a national crisis in Australia. A woman had been killed in Australia. A woman has been killed on average every 4 days so far this year. Organizer Martina Ferreira was I beg your pardon, organizer Martina Ferrara, we said we want alternative reporting options for victim survivors to let them own their stories and own their healing and reporting journey. And we want the government to acknowledge this is an emergency, action, and take immediate action, speaking to a march in the capital, Cabanera. Attended by thousands of protesters, Mr. Albanese admitted the government at all levels needed to do better. And we cross over to the war in Gaza. Hundreds of university students arrested in the US as Gaza war protests spread. Hundreds of students have been arrested across universities in the United States as protesters continue to demand a ceasefire in Gaza and divest from companies enabling Israel's nearly 7-month war on the Palestinian enclave. Police were out in full force on college campuses on Saturday, some using chemical irritants and tasers to disperse the students, as more universities witnessed protesters against the continued bombings of the Gaza Strip and seeking an end to the US military assistance to Israel. In a statement on X, Northeastern said the area of campus where the protests were held was fully secured and all campus operations have returned to normal. The school said its move came after what began as a student demonstration 2 days ago was infiltrated by professional organizers with no affiliation to Northeastern. It added that detained individuals who produced a valid school ID were released and will face disciplinary proceedings, not legal action. And moving on to Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso says HRW massacre accusations are baseless. Burkina Faso has said a Human Rights Watch report alleging that soldiers killed at least 223 villagers in 2 attacks on February 25th are baseless accusations. The HRW report on Thursday accused the military of executing residents of Nudin and Soro, including at least 56 children, as part of a campaign against civilians accused of collaborating with rebel fighters. The New York-based group said its report was based on telephone interviews with witnesses, civil society, and others. The government of Burkina Faso strongly rejects and condemns such baseless accusations. Communications Minister Jean-Emmanuel said in a statement late on Saturday. The killings at Nudin and Soro led to the opening of a legal inquiry, he said. The minister expressed his surprise that while this inquiry is underway to establish the facts and identify the authors, HRW has been able, with boundless imaginations, to identify the guilty and pronounce its verdict. And finally, the G7 holds strategic talks in climate hotspot Italy. The Group of 7 meeting in the northern Italy city is the first big political session since the world pledged the UN's COP28 climate summit in December to transition away from coal, oil, and gas. It comes as a new report by a global climate institute shows the G7 is falling far short of its targets. Hundreds of protesters demonstrated in Turin on Sunday, some burning photos of the G7 leaders as they accuse them of failing future generations over the climate crisis. Rome, which holds the G7 rotating presidency, says it wants Turin to be a strategic link between last year's conference of parties in Dubai and COP29, which will take place in November in Azerbaijan. And that has been some of the stories that have been making news in our international scene.
Well, and now we're taking a look at what the front pages are highlighting this morning. The New Vision is having the headline of police foiling 700 billion Ugandan shillings NSSF land fraud as the top header in today's New Vision cover, as 10 arrested over forging ministers' signatures. Read about that in the New Vision. Now, alcohol is killing 17,000 Ugandans annually, a report that is not so good for Uganda's well-being. President Museveni asks Acholi to fight poverty. A pictorial of President Museveni with Honorable Lillian Aba in northern Uganda. That was on Saturday. Now, UBOS warns districts over fake census stuff. Read about it as why dancing is healthy. How often do you dance? Read about it in the New Vision today. Now, daughters arrested after mother's death. An interesting report, 10 days to go to the census. Also, the countdown to the census of 2024. That report is very interesting of alcohol, by the way, killing 17,000 Ugandans annually, according to a new study. So be safe as you're taking a drink, one or two. Now, the Daily Monitor is also having a highlight. Uganda is set to supply maize to Zambia. This is an extended report that we're going to be looking deeper into in our business updates this morning. Also, 10 farms that export 70% of Uganda's coffee have been named in today's Daily Monitor. Here we are, Nakawa Specialty Center to treat brain and kidney diseases, a pictorial of the opening of the center. Then also healthy living. Why is it dangerous for your child to miss vaccination? Read about it in today's Daily Monitor. Now, in Mali, ice now costs more than bread as heat wave scorches. That is a detail that you can find about in today's Daily Monitor. We now cross the borders to Kenya. The Daily Nation is highlighting that the state is to revise next budget by 350 billion Kenyan shillings. Economy state had projected to spend 4.2 trillion Kenyan shillings in the 2024-2025 financial year. More details to proceed in the Daily Nation. Nature's fury. Heavy rains continue to wreak havoc in Kenya. Then also, schools in flooded areas to remain closed, says Machogu. Also, Azimio leaders defend Atwoli. Read about that, as the opposition has warned the government against using the private security regulatory authority and its CEO to attack the veteran Kutu chief and destroy the trade union movement in the country. Now, matters sport. Hard-fought derby win keeps Arsenal in race for the English Premier League title, as the Gunners hold on to London rivals to stay top of the table as Man City win in frenetic home stretch. All right, now lastly from our press review this morning, we look at the Citizen. Traders count their losses as rain ravages roads and markets in Tanzania. NCBA's financial inclusion plan amid 20 billion Tanzanian shillings net profit also highlighted. Now in football, you can read about Benchika quits as Simba head coach. Why is that so? Find more details in the Citizen. Government unveils new tourism licensing structure in Tanzania. Then also, the night Namibia's president paid visit to Ambassador Ami Mpungwe's home. Read about those stories. Interesting in today's Citizen. Well, there you have it from our press review this particular Monday morning. As the week is starting, Wednesday, I did remind you, it will be International Labour's Day, where Uganda will be joining the rest of the world to celebrate it. Live from Fort Portal Wednesday will be the live broadcast here on your national broadcast at the Mukabura grounds, by the way, for the celebrations here in Uganda. But that aside, it's Monday. As we are attacking the Monday, we are supposed to be very optimistic. And so is our inspirational song coming in from Azawi and Fikfa Maker, Majay. Have it.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, as the clock is ticking in the right direction, we're left with only one day to say goodbye to the month of April. How are you welcoming May? Because this week is also another week for us to get into context with what the world is likely to provide to us. But yet again, Good Morning Uganda returns and in full swing to make sure that we give you details from the world of news locally and internationally. But not only that, we also take you through different topical discussions and analysis that is highly appreciated. On the 29th of April 2024, we are here for our live broadcast of Good Morning Uganda, Nile Avenue. So, to speak, we are live and you, our viewer, are on time just to wake up with us. Just run a little bit more of 32 minutes off 6 o'clock. That means we have 28 minutes to the hour of 7. And here we are to make sure that you, our viewer, you, a Ugandan, and anyone else who is not Ugandan but is always glued onto Good Morning Uganda. We do have a very huge follower in Zambia who always wakes up with us. We're actually 1 hour ahead of them, but he's always watching the show. But nonetheless, here is Good Morning Uganda. I am Joram Paul Sonko. Merab is with me. Merab Cherotich Chepsikor.
Yes.
And I've got the names right this time around. A very good morning, Merab.
Good morning, Sonko. I'm very happy and excited to be here with you this morning. Hope you had a lovely weekend. I hope our viewers had a lovely weekend as well. And we are excited that we get to take you through your morning and look at some of the stories that have made headlines and further discuss them, dissect them, and yes, just having you through this morning.
And well, speaking of stories that have been making headlines throughout the weekend, on Friday, there was an interesting report, by the way. A 66-year-old was arrested for defiling his 15-year-old granddaughter.
Oh, yes.
When you look at some of these cases here in Uganda, it's quite alarming, really. It shouldn't be the story we can easily start up on a Monday,
yes.
But you get to realize that it was something that really sparked up a very huge outcry from the feminists, from different people from the religious, side of things, trying to look into how the society is actually changing. Because this particular relationship is something that you wouldn't wish to have. As a granddaughter, you would expect your grandfather to be taking you through life and trying to prepare you for the future. But again, him trying to disorganize your future is not something that you would want. And the gentleman in question is Peter Egesa, who is a fish trader and resident of Buhonge Village, Buyaga Sub-County in Busia District, who was arrested. And well, that is not something that you would wish for your granddaughter, honestly.
Of course, definitely. And I agree with the people who came out and were not happy about this, the outcry to the public. They should, this is something very immoral. Our grandparents are supposed to protect us.
It's very true.
But this is a person who took advantage of a little girl. So it's quite unfortunate. But justice should be served for the child, and he should face the law.
Well, and on a good note is that the police came in already, or the authority already stepped up to ensure that law prevails. And this is how beautiful the situation can get, so that this 15-year-old can get justice. And clearly giving a direction that there is no room for defilement, no room for rape in this our country. So any case of that nature, you are free to report. Mara, what really stood out for you along the weekend?
Well, along the weekend, we have a story that comes in from all the way from Kasese, where the members of parliament actually petitioned the president to halt the closure of the hospital, Kilembe Hospital, that is along the banks of River Nyamwamba. It has been prone to flooding, and due to this, the government wants to close down the hospital, but the MPs argue that this is going to affect the services to the people of the area. The Kilembe Mines Hospital was opened in 1951 by the Cobalt and Copper Company. It was opened to help serve the people of the community, but the mine eventually closed in about 1981, but the hospital continued serving the community. But as we have seen the previous years, there have been a lot of floods that affect this hospital. So government wants to close it down. The MPs still argue that if the hospital is closed down, it will affect how the people receive the medical services and will have to force them to go to Mbarara or Fort Portal to acquire these services. So it's been an outcry from the members of Kasese, residents of Kasese, to the members of parliament to request the president to halt its closure. But
well, when you look at the reason behind the closure is pretty much the government trying to be a little bit more proactive, not reactionary at the end of the day, so that at least we do not have people dying in this hospital in case of any sort of disaster. Because speaking about disasters and how climate change is actually highly impacting and making waves across the African continent, our neighbors in Kenya are facing it rough when it comes to the flooding in there. Those in the capital, Nairobi, can fully testify to this, because when you look at some of the images coming along over social media, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is one of those that have highly been affected. And that means it does affect the flights for the, inland Kenya, and then also international flights. And when you look at the number of flights that the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport handles, you wouldn't wish them to be in such a situation. And many of those who are living in different areas or residential areas in Nairobi are also highly affected by this flooding that continues to grow, that continues to proceed. But then earlier at the start of the show, that we will be celebrating International Labor Day. I almost said International Women's Day. But that aside, I have two ladies with me in studio this morning. Our conversation, though, is going to be rotating around women in business and entrepreneurship. Over the years, we've seen so many strides by women in business in Uganda. Many of the women have come out to make different innovations, come up with different business ideas, and they are striving. And then when we also talk about women leadership, it's very vital for us not to forget the fact that the government has also been very vocal and very supportive when it comes to putting women in leadership posts. But that aside, from the Uganda Revenue Authority perspective or point of view, for the women who are in businesses, the women in businesses declare more taxes or are more tax compliant than the men in business. So you can get to realize why we are here and why we are having a huge topic of conversation this morning. Now it's time for me to give you a heads up of who I'm having this morning, because closest to me, I do have Miss Amanda Feli by Suka, who is a sales and marketing enthusiast. A very good morning, ma'am, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for hosting me and having me here.
Well, pleasure is ours having you this morning, ma'am. Then we also have Esther Nyakake, who is an operations manager, Quiba, that is Quera Women in Business. A very good morning, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us as well.
Very good morning. Thank you for having me, and good morning to the viewers.
Well, and here we are in regards to celebrating women and making sure that women are highly appreciated in everything they do. Like I did mention, we're talking women in entrepreneurship and business, and one would simply want to understand, if we are talking about women in business and women in entrepreneurship, what does it fully entail? Because by the look of things, there are lots of things that you look at. You look at the fact that not only are we celebrating Labour's Day this week, but celebrating women is very important, because many of them that have been in business and entrepreneurship have highly succeeded. However much, there are lots of shortcomings here and there and hindrances of the same. That's why I will be inviting in my guests to share with me a thing or two. Esther, as a woman who's practically in business, let me start with you as well. If we are to look at, what it means for a woman in this modern age to be a business person or an entrepreneur, what kind of, confidence does it give to other women in Uganda?
Thank you. As a woman in business in this area where we are now, as a holistic woman, it does take a lot of work, yes, but at the end of the day, we find our confidence in knowing what it is that is expected of us, vis-a-vis what kind of business that you do. For example, if you are operating in a salon, what is required for you in a salon, and then the biggest confidence, where we get it from, is the network that we work with, is the mentorship that we work with, is the community that we operate in, and also finding the why you are in that business.
Amanda, if you can share with the viewers some of your stories. How do you get into the world of business? Many a times after university or after high school, many people rush into employment and all that. How have you been able to break even throughout your life?
Oh, okay, that's a really beautiful one. So I can say personally that I was born for business. I was born trying to do things here and there, and I went to Makerere University Business School, and there definitely I learned the dynamics of business and how things should be done.
From the professional side of
From
things.
the professional side of view. So I started out having a shop, a small business shop where I would do boutique business here and there, and definitely for such shops, when the students go for holiday, that means for 3 months you're not working. So I definitely closed shop and went into employment in the hospitality sector. Then up until when lockdown came, I saw a gap. I saw a gap in childcare because during my vacation I had worked with a Montessori school. So I had learned and discovered the challenges that modern day parents go through. So when lockdown came, I thought about all the other teachers that could be having similar challenges. And then that's when I started up Nanny a Day. Nanny a Day is a mobile babysitting service that caters or helps career mothers with modern day parenting challenges. So if you're a business owner and you have to have a meeting, you have to be at work, and you don't have anyone to leave your child with, Nanny a Day was or is coming in handy to help you at that particular time.
Well, that's a great innovation if you were to ask me. Let me get back to Esther. Esther, real quick, when you look into mentorship in your entrepreneurship journey, how important is having a mentor in business to any woman who wants to succeed in business, or to any woman who seeks to start up a venture in the world of business?
One thing we need to realize and understand is whatever it is you choose or you want to do, there's always somebody who has done it. And maybe somebody who has done it better, but there's always a blueprint already on the way. So where mentorship comes in is that you don't have to go back to do everything for yourself. So when you have a mentor in life, it's easy. It makes your work easy. So the main thing is being able to understand who can do this for me. So mentorship helps you bridge a bigger gap, whereby, you see, when we go to school, we spend about, about 13 years in school.
16.
But if you ask me what I did, what I studied right now, honestly, okay, for me, I did accounting, and yes, I've practiced accounting. But when it comes to the real business life out there is not, I don't want to say the word easy, because at the end of the day, it is doable. But if I am looking to start photography, it is best for me to go and look for the best photographer around. So it will help me, because this person will introduce me to things that I didn't know, to ideas that I didn't know. So mentorship is very key in whatever it is that you want to do, and aligning yourself in line with the mentors that serve you. So there are different mentors, but at the end of the day, you need to, first of all, in your docket, you need to have a mentor in relation to what it is that you are doing.
Well, Amanda, now, when we talk about networking, many a times there are sayings that your network is your net worth. Now, for the women, how important and how vital is networking in regards to supporting a woman's business to grow?
Okay, so definitely to grow your business, I always share this with women, because I currently teach people in Cuba how to scale, how to find their next customer. And I always tell them one of the key factors of ensuring you find your next customer and actually keep them is ensuring that you network. But knowing how to network is actually the most important part. You could network, but network wrongly. You find people who know everyone but don't have results.
True.
Yes. So
Or
you must...
you're in the right place, but you're not getting anything.
Yes. So you must be able to learn how to network when you meet people, when you go out there into the spaces, because the government and even Quiba itself currently has created very big communities for women, but these women must know what to do or say when they meet together. Are you pitching your business right? You must know how to make your elevator speech. You must know how to speak to someone and tell them about your business and what you do in probably the first 1 minute and keep them glued to you. Yes.
Well, you've mentioned Quiba, which stands for Queer Women in Business, right?
Yes.
What does, I forgot to ask what Quiba stands for, or like what does it represent generally? Okay,
so Queer Women in Business is an establishment that was put together by one of our key founders, Coach Purity Wako. Okay. She's a certified coach and a nutritionist that put together over 500 women that initially went to her to seek health options, to help them with their health challenges, because most of these women are entrepreneurs and business women, and others actually professionals. So she put them together in a community where they network, share ideas, grow each other, because definitely they say, alone you can go far, but together we can go further.
Yes.
Yes. So Queer Women in Business Africa is a community of, actually I think we're now growing, we're going to 700 plus. We are registered. We do skilling for business owners. We do networking, and then we also do referrals, business referrals within ourselves in the community.
Deeply looking into the initiatives that have been laid by Queera over the years, what are some of those stories that you can share with our viewers that have been very supportive to the women in business?
Okay, so Queera, first of all, on a yearly basis, has, for lack of a better word, a moleso, where all the women converge.
Well, like an expo.
An expo, yes, where the women converge and make sales. But also, daily, we make referrals in our midst, amongst ourselves. We also have a skilling program where the ladies have been skilled in all the business fundamentals. And we've seen many of them revolve and evolve and change, learn and unlearn about business, about regulations, about conforming to the government laws and what to do. Yes.
Okay, let me get to Esther. Esther, when you look at balancing of work, at times it is something that is very difficult for many women. Balancing of the professional bit of it and personal life. As a woman, if you're to share some bits of how you've been able to do it, what is something, or which kind of advice could you give to a woman who's struggling to balance that, the social life, personal life, or family with work?
My take is a little bit different because, to be honest, there's nothing like balancing. At one phase, you will find that the other will be left behind. So to me, what does balancing, okay, it's called work-life balance. Even I remember then in my corporate life, that is one of the topics that was always there for us. But to me, what work-life balance is simply being present in the moment. If you are at home and maybe you are a mother, take those minutes and be able to know that now I'm with my children or I'm with my husband, and now be fully present 100%. Do not be at home and then choose to do work. But also with this COVID, we were able to realize the flexibility of working from home. So to me, it's about creating boundaries that work for you. If you're at workplace, be present 100%. But the best way you can be able to balance life and work is that you need to be able to learn how to schedule yourself well. A scheduler will help you to understand that on Monday morning, this is what I'm doing. And maybe if you have children and you have a sports day to go to, you need to understand that on Saturday, you close out that time, you close out calls. I'm actually one person, if you called me and it is work related in the time of family, pardon me, I may not pick your call, because I have tried to zone in. When it is time for family, it is time for family. When it is time for work, it is time for work. When it is time for business, it is time for business. So to me, I've been able to manage it by being 100% present in whatever it is that I'm doing.
Oh, wow. Amanda, here's to you. When you look at that balancing, situation, you're in times of a conflicting loyalty. What should I give more energy? What should I give more power? Many women are actually failing at this. What, in your view, should be the best way to try and balance the two things? Esther shared it's 100% everywhere. Now, when it comes to you, what are some of the do's and the don'ts?
Okay, so for me, what the first thing should be that many of us women should actually learn and accept and embrace change.
Okay.
Embrace change and also adopt technology and know that the world is changing, and how things were done back then is not the same as the way things are currently done.
True.
So because of that, get support and community. When you get support and community, most of these challenges will be lighter than they should be. In the past years, growing up, we had extended families. You'd have maybe an auntie from the village helping you raise the children. You'd have maybe your mother helping you maybe school the children when they're still younger while you try to work. But now the world has evolved. That means you actually have to take your child to daycare.
True.
You actually now have to get a nanny. Then personally, you start embracing technology and change. There are very many applications for scheduling yourself. For example, now, like a businesswoman, previously, you'd have to market, go door to door. Now, when I need to market, I could take the digital option. I could automate my sales. I could automate my marketing. All these things would have consumed a lot more of my time. But now, because of embracing technology, I can take advantage of it and have more time to spare for my family and children.
Okay. Looking at Uganda's political climate today, back then, we never used to have people like your business people having a say in the policies that are being made and everything. But today, as we speak, many of the business people are very vocal when it comes to the policy makers, when it comes to certain decisions that directly impact all of us, not only from the social bit, but mostly on the economic status. So when you look at it from, this is a question that is going to both of you. When you look at it from your side of things, what should the policy makers and even the private sector players do to support, women startups in business, women startups today?
Okay, so there's definitely need for continuous engagement. Continuous engagement. I happen to come from the Busoga region.
I have my grandparents from that side.
Oh, nice. And from my side, we have a saying that says, Omsada Chakova Zena Chenkova. But now, in business, that is no longer applying. I really want to know. I'm an equal stakeholder in this. So can I also know what you want to decide for me? Can you ask me what I want? And also, if the private sector, the key stakeholders, know what I want, can they actually share exactly what I want, not what they think I want?
Okay.
Yes.
They shouldn't think for you.
Don't think for me. Ask me, what do you actually want?
Esther,
Yes.
policymakers, and when I'm talking about policymakers, I'm talking about members of parliament in the right decision-making platforms for us as a country. But at the end of the day, just a few weeks back when the traders were rioting, you get to realize many of them were rioting because some of the policymakers do make things that do not directly support the businesses, but rather support the policymakers' decisions. What is your take on what the policymakers should do to support women?
You should have avoided to bring that to me because we actually had the discussion on IFRIS last week in our community. Actually, the government has really done a good job to support especially women because it does a lot of skilling. Recently, I was seeing women graduating in Kololo So it has really done a good job. My only concern would be the practical bit of, yes, we have the policies. Honestly, the policies are there. When you talk of IFRIS began about 6 years ago. So the knowledge was there, but the bit of how this knowledge is coming down, the practical bit of when you wake up and this is what I need to do, is what is not being done. So on the woman's side, where we rely so much and where our struggle is, normally comes in with raising capital, because we need to understand what it is that we require as women in business. So to me, the government has done a good job on policy, but the lack is the bit of the practical bit whereby they need to go down. Yes, you've skilled these women because most of their policies are in skilling. So yes, these women are skilled and they give them capital. But 2 years down the road, what is it? What is an amateur of doing with the machine that you gave them? So the aftermath, the evaluation, the continuity where a business can be able to run for 5 years, for 10 years is what is lacking. So you realize there is so much of startup, but the continuity is where the problem is, whereby a woman can be able to raise from a small business to an enterprise for over 20 years. So that is the gap that is lacking on government. So I would request that they emphasize on the valuation of what it is that they are doing.
Let's talk about male-dominated spaces, ladies. When you look at the world we are in today, we are no longer having a job that is only done by the men. The women are stepping up so highly, and in spaces which have actually left men feel a little bit uncomfortable in certain scenarios, for lack of a better word. How have you been able to maneuver through? And again, this is a question for both of you. I'll start with you, Amanda. When you look at the male-dominated spaces, how have you been able to pass through? And have you faced any sort of gender bias along the way? Gender bias, discrimination along the way?
Oh, wow. I first of all would like to acknowledge that there are challenges and gaps. However, I also want to acknowledge that men are here to support us. They're not here to fight us, like the norm has been. Yes, they're here to support us. And I think, for example, in our community, in the queer women in business community, we see many of the women were encouraged to actually come through with their partners, if you want, say for our events. And also, when we are skilling the women, we encourage them to engage their partners in the conversation, to get their mind and actually share. Because the narrative that has been shared out there is that as a woman, I should do my thing and run the race alone.
Yes.
But how about you run the race with your partner? You can go a long way, you can go better together. So for me, being able to run this business race with a partner is what really goes a long way.
Okay.
Yes.
And Esther, along the journey, you know, male-dominated spaces. You've worked with men over the years. You interact with male clients and the like. How has been your interaction with them, and how pivotal has it been in your business journey?
Men spaces.
Men-dominated spaces.
Wow, you know, one of my dreams that I would like to see would be seeing a factory that is owned fully by women. So the gap is still there, honestly, the gap is still there, but from my spiritual side, a man plays a huge role in a woman's life, and where I would require their support would be to hold hands together. So moving away from family, in workplaces, there is that sense of competition. But how about this competition is a positive competition whereby you talk to a woman, not, okay, the narrative these days is so much of helping girls, empowering women, equality. So I think even the men now are taking it as a defense factor of, yes, they want these women to be equal to us, but we need to understand what exactly does it mean to be equal. Honestly, we cannot be equal because we are all wired differently. Women are incubators, men are sowers. So we are totally different. So where I would require many support would be if there is a seed that you're sowing, for example, if we are starting a business, the role of a woman in that business, because we are so good in the operations bit, in how this should move, in where this should be. That is why we are so good even at our homes, which of course a man will not do. So at the end of the day, would require the support from men, whereby they help us to understand the nitty-gritties of it. Moving away from personal life and maybe into business. Where we are now, you'll see that most small businesses are done by women. They are the women in the markets, they are the women in the salons, they are the women, and then the male are dominated. They are the ones who, I normally give an example of the truck driving. So you'll not see so many women doing trucks, you'll not see so many women doing even the simple thing of a taxi driver. So that the culture has made us believe that some things are for men and some things are for women. But where we are now, we need to bridge that gap, whereby it's easy. If I wake up and I'm riding a boda as a woman, I shouldn't be stereotyped whereby somebody's like, the rider is a woman. So to me, it's being able to create a culture right from the lower level, from the children, understanding that yes, some roles are not just for men, but some roles are for everyone, whether you are a woman or a girl. So that is where the bridge that we need to, the gap that we need to bridge.
Well, I almost forgot to call in our viewers to contribute to the topic we're having this morning. And I've already received a comment here on our WhatsApp number. This one says, I'm Chigwe Livingston of Neje Division of Reza. Thank you very much for watching. He says that the women have moved steps ahead in business and entrepreneurship, but they still need capacity building and confidence. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for that comment. Now, that brings me to my other question. How can women entrepreneurs build confidence and assertiveness in a world filled up with lots of competition today?
Oh, okay. So one of the things that, for me, in my opinion, has happened over time is that we have received so much information. The women have been trained. We have learnt a lot. Now, can we have the action? The action is currently the biggest thing at hand, the biggest issue. Let me give an example. People have been trained, say, for example, how to sell. But in selling, they didn't tell them that you must probably understand personality traits. If you don't understand how your customers act or behave, you will not know how to work with them. So now that we are on the action bit of it, now that we need to start acting as opposed to learning a lot, we now need to do that, like do that talk and start doing. So when you start doing, you now start gaining confidence, you start getting experience, you start knowing what to do.
Okay.
Yes, so you start muscling up and getting the energy to face every other day because now you know what to do, as opposed to constantly getting skilled and skilled and skilled without acting.
Well, Esther, looking in the world of women in business, what are some of those shortcomings along the way? Some of the shortfalls that many women experience in the world of business that really need critical thinking all the time if you are a woman who is doing business?
Our biggest shortcoming is in relation to raising capital. Yes, because most of us begin small businesses, and whereby you start a business with probably 500,000, but the operations of a business are so high in this era. So our greatest challenge is being able to raise capital that can help us to scale, whereby you have a business and you're able to franchise in the near future. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we face, being able to raise enough capital. The other challenge that we face is marketing. Uganda is so much of a referral business, so you go as much as the people that you know. So that is the greatest other challenge, being able to bring in clients and for the business to be able to grow. So you realize in most cases you're operating on the same scale, on the same sales revenue because of that is there. Then the other greatest challenges is, yes, we talk about collaboration, we talk about partnership, but these things are actually not happening. So if we had bigger companies, how can they collaborate with the smaller companies in order to help them scale? So the greatest challenges are being able to cut in between and knowing this is what I need to do. And then, of course, the demands of life, whereby you wake up and this is what is expected of you as a woman. We have there's a big expectation on us that even when I'm coming to the studio here, the eyes are like, okay, what is she, like the expectation is so huge on a woman in relation to so many aspects of life. So those are the challenges that we face, but at the end of the day, it is doable, and yes, we can be able to achieve what it is that we need to do as women in business.
All right, let's sum this up with Amanda. What do we have on Wednesday, and what should the women in business look out for this Wednesday? We're celebrating Labour's Day, but I do understand Quera is having an event coming along. What is that?
Okay, so for the past 1 year, Quera Women in Business has been skilling women on how to scale their business and actually up their business game and be ready for investment, and those that were at inception to be ready to take off.
Okay.
So we are having a graduation for those that have been training, and as well we are having our first year anniversary. Quera Women in Business has been here for 1 year, so come Labor Day,
okay,
we'll be making 1 year. So we found it worthy or a beautiful thing to come together as women and celebrate our milestone and achievement. So there has been a lot of research, say by the Economic Policy Research Center, by the African Freedom Information Center, showing that women businesses are going to grow. Like the rate at which they're growing is starting to spike. Government has done a lot of things to engage us. Recently, I saw PPDA putting into new regulations to bring into inclusion for business owners in how they bid, in how they engage. So making women aware of these things that the government has put in place for them, teaching them what to actually do, and holding their hands so that they know what to do. For example, when they need to bid and maybe according to them, they don't have the capacity to. In our community, we're able to push and support them. So we are meeting to celebrate these milestones, the things we've done together and the things we hope to do together.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, ladies, and to you, our dear viewer, for being part of this discussion this morning. I've been having two ladies this morning having amazing stories and as well inspiring the women out there in business. Esther Nyakake, who is the operations manager, Quiba, that is Quera Women in Business. The one on your screen is Amanda Feli by Suka. And Amanda is a sales and marketing enthusiast. Both of them have been here sharing many stories and the like. Our topic of discussion has been entirely looking at women in business and entrepreneurship. As we're summing up, though, there's an interesting comment coming in from here. This one says, good morning. Is it possible for a wife to bring starting capital in business? Abdul Hakim from Bali. Hakim, support your wife. After the break, when we do return, we have the GMU Tourism Express with Alin Namisango. So stick around. More is yet to come. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Was brought to you by
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hustle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting it. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable. On Wednesday, the 1st of May 2024, Uganda will join the rest of the world to commemorate the International Labour Day, a day celebrated to recognize the contribution of labour towards the social, economic and political development of the country. This year's celebrations will be held at Mukabura grounds in Fort Portal City on the theme, Improving Access to Labour Justice, a prerequisite for increased productivity. The celebrations will be cast live on UBC TV, all our radio stations and social media platforms. Don't miss. Happy Labour Day.
Yo, what you check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Joko, I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Nkwanga Ramazan is my name, the head teacher of this great school, Ikumbia Seed Secondary School. The school has the staff room well furnished, administration well furnished, the computer lab well furnished, the library wonderful, the multipurpose hall well furnished. The teachers are also enjoying in the staff quarters. The school has the teachers totaling to 28. Ikumbia Seed has embraced the new curriculum. I want to thank the government for that bright idea. There are many students that end up in senior 4 with no document. But with the coming of the IT, the skill children are going to have certificates in skills as early as senior 3. And that certificate is equivalent to a senior 4 certificate. Ikumbia Seed Secondary School is a very great school that has influenced the lives of people or changed the lives of people of Ikumbia sub-county. I want to thank the parents and the government for this kind of input.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, a documentary film about our unity as Ugandans and Africans.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
Tuko Pamoja?
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
products that we have in the country, yet it attracts like several discerning tourists that are seeking out for culture experiences, unique culture experiences around the world. So when we talk about Uganda's culture, with the more than 50 tribes that we have in the country, it is really a product that we should be giving a lot more attention, considering the other products that we are giving attention now. And today, being in Toro region, Toro Kingdom, here we are at Empaco village, the one-stop center for all Toro's culture. If you need to know anything about Toro's culture, this is the place. But the highlight for the place is the Empaco. Do you know that Empaco is just a pet name that is given to the Toro people, but it is also extending to the Banyoro, going to Congo. So it is a pet name, say Amoti, Aboli, Apoli. These are some of the common names. And yes, it is common that most people have pet names. Maybe they meet Toro friends that give them these pet names, but do you know the rituals behind? Do you know how you're initiated into this pet name, how you get this pet name? So at Empaco village, you get into the real Empaco tradition. It is an endangered tradition that is somehow being phasing out due to the modernity that is coming up, the transformation. But here at Empaco village, you get the real experience, the rituals, you go through the rituals, the food, everything that you need so that you get your Empaco name rightfully as the Mutoro woman or Mutoro man that they get it. So let's roll through the place and see what happens here.
Solomon Kajura is my name. Proprietor of Empaco village. At Empaco village, we pride ourselves of culture tourism. You're sitting in a valley called the Gweri Valley, which is traditionally was a hunting ground for the kings. The uniqueness of Empaco village is that we want to build and preserve the Empaco tradition in its entirety. So at Empaco village, you'll get an Empaco name. You will get to see the cultural artifacts explaining the life of a Mutoro or the life of Empaco tradition. You will get to experience the music. You'll get to experience the food. You'll get to experience all other rituals that associate with the Batoro and the people of Empaco. But also, I mean, the art and the architecture embedded in us brings out the beauty that you see today. So the uniqueness of tourism really, I feel, is the experience and the beauty and the story behind the establishment.
My name is Nelon Gerarda Moti, and there are very many people who have Empaco outside there, but they don't have it the right way. They did not have rituals performed of getting Empaco. Empaco, for those who don't know, is these are names of endearment for the Watoro and Banyoro and other tribes around East Africa. There are 12 of them, and most people have them, say Amoti, Akiki. Some people don't have them the way they're supposed to. So right here, you get to learn how the rituals are performed, and you get to get yourself Empaco as any person. It's important to know that today, Empaco is for everyone, whether you're coming from Uganda, whether you're coming from the rest of Africa, whether you're coming from the US, Europe, Asia, it's for everyone. And this is one of the places where you get to get Empaco the right way.
We are preserving an endangered culture of the world. Empaco tradition is very endangered because the new generations don't really care about, oh well, they may care, but even the rituals that we did to name a Mutoro, a Munyoro, a Boki, a Moti, a Puli, and all the rest is slowly getting eradicated because we see a lot of visitors who come and say, yeah, but I already have a name. I have a pet name. I'm a Boki, I'm what? I'm like, how did you get the name? And they say, yeah, I met a friend of mine and he named me a Boki. But we still have to go about rituals to get the name.
Before you get Empaco, if you are born from here, there is a process they give you go through. One, when a child is born, a boy or a girl, after 4 days, that's when you qualify for a boy to get Empaco. And after 3 days, that's when you qualify to get Empaco for a girl, for those who are born in this kingdom. So after those 3 days or 4 days, depending on the gender, for a boy, they will take you around the house 4 times as people laugh and smile around. And then after that, they'll take you to one of your uncles, and that person will hold the child on their laps. They keep doing it 4 times for the boy, and then they give you Empaco according to how someone feels about you, according to how they look at you. They choose one of the 12 Empaco and give it to you. For a girl, it's 3 times around the house as people laugh and smile, and then they get the auntie of the child, and then they do the same thing 3 times for the girl. Still, they choose Empaco that suits you and give it to you. Once that is done, they prepare a meal of millet or kalo with obutuzi or mkaro, that meat prepared with mushrooms. And then for the girl, they give her, you eat on it 3 times, the millet, and then for the boy, you eat on it 3 times. The reason for going around the house laughing and doing that stuff is basically to create a cheerful attitude in the child and making sure the child grows with positive energy.
So many activities happen here at Empaco village. You can go for shipping, but here still you're going to meet not the world's biggest, but we consider it the world's biggest port house, because when you look at the World Guinness records, the highest port stands at around 2 meters, but this one, it is like in 12 meters. So we believe that it is the world's largest port house. So if you want to see such unique things in Uganda, you should consider visiting Empaco village that is located just about 12 kilometers on Chibale Road and 5 kilometers from the Chigarama post. So just be here. This is a place for you. Explore Uganda. Yeah, you know what I forgot. I am Irene Ali Namisang, and this is the GM Tourism Express, where we talk about anything that you need to know about this world.
Stock business, because on Friday, the Graka Marshall Trust, through a gender inclusive investment program, Afrishella, hosted an investor showcase in Kampala, where various women in business and quite a number of entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, showcased, exhibited, and of course, threw out their businesses in the basket for potential investors and supporters to come through and finance their business startups and business ventures. The presentations, networking, and of course sharing business ideas was the order of the day entirely, simply because the women had to share, network, build contacts in order to have and tap into potential investments and potential financing from investors. Now, the investment strategy aims at empowering women that do own businesses, connecting women to reliable financing, which is also inclusive to women in all sectors, and also sourcing employment opportunities for the women searching for the various jobs. Now, when you also look at the recent World Bank report, which was dubbed Profiting from Parity, it further revealed that women entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa face challenges in achieving substantial profits and scaling their businesses, and such programs, according to Natkunda Inin Mugisha of the Raw and Organic Investments Limited, have a big impact in seeing that women grow bigger and better in the world of business, despite the fact that they do face quite a number of issues along the journey. Now, Richard Zulu, who is the team principal at Outbox, who are one of the financiers or one of the potential investors that will support these women, did note that as much as women seek for support in their business, there is also need to establish and see or observe whether these women are resilient, have been able to go through all these hardships in business and have strongly survived. And then also to see whether this business can expand beyond just being a small-scale enterprise into something bigger and better. better. Now, Groka Mashal Trust is a Pan-African organization that champions the rights of women, and they do this through advocacy, there's enterprise development, as well as providing room for funding of many of the women entrepreneurs. Through their flagship entrepreneurship program, they've already impacted close to 2,000 women in Malawi, Zambia, Tanzania, South Africa, Kenya, Senegal, and Uganda. All right, now, away from that, we turn our focus on to drought-stricken Zambia, which has turned to Uganda for maize. Lusaka has banned the exports of maize grain and flour in February, following a prolonged dry spell that adversely impacted the production of the crop in about 84 out of the country's 116 districts. Now, Zambia is currently in talks with Uganda for a possible supply of more than 500,000 metric tons of maize to replenish its depleted reserves that have exposed more than 2 million people to starvation. Now, Lusaka banned the exports of maize grain and maize flour in February, following that prolonged dry spell that adversely impacted crop production in Zambia. Out of the 116 districts, 84 of those were highly affected. Now, Uganda's Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries did reveal that Kampala has received the request to supply up to 500,000 metric tons of grain to Lusaka, that is Zambia. Now, of course, there is a certain requirement, including quality, that is highly supposed to be maintained if this grain is to be exported to Zambia, and if at all the market is to be utilized by our Ugandan farmers and exporters in the same regard. Now, Zambia's Vulnerability Assessment Report 2023 projects over 2 million people to be food insecure, spanning the period of October 2023 to March 2024. And Zambia, the second largest maize producing nation in Southern Africa, after South Africa, further declared drought a national disaster in February and also introduced services Farm Afigri in the same. Now, last year, Zambia also turned down a proposal to supply maize grain to Kenya, even as Kenya's Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithiki Lituri hinted that a memorandum of understanding had been signed, contracting Zambian farmers to grow maize exclusively for the Kenyan market. Now, historically, Kenya has sourced most of its imported maize from Tanzania. However, the traders have had difficulty exporting the grain from Tanzania following the implementation of new export procedures by the Tanzanian authorities. Now, you get to realize that we are reaching a time where our Ugandan market or our Ugandan grain farmers and exporters are likely to tap into some huge market, 500,000 tons of grain, highly in need in Lusaka. Well, lastly, from our business updates this morning, we now look at the Forex updates. This is how the different currencies were faring over the weekend. The US dollar was opening at 3,802.25 for those buying, while selling at 3,812.25. By midday, the US dollar was at 3,807.79, while selling at 3,817.79. Now, let's look at the closing time. The US dollar was buying at 3,808.88 shillings, while selling at 3,818.88. And the Great Britain pound was buying at 4,764.52, while selling at 4,777.03. Then the euro was buying at 4,086.54, while selling at 4,097.27. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.21, while selling at 28.28 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.47 shillings, while selling at 1.47 shillings, as the South African rand was buying at 200.29 shillings, while selling at 200.82 Ugandan shillings. Well, that's it for business this time round. Now we return with our traffic updates. Good morning. All right, now we head into our traffic updates, and of course where I'm standing now is heading to around the Freedom City Mall. That is for the people who are leaving Entebbe Road. Now starting from Freedom City Mall, for those who are coming in from Ndeje, using that route of Namasuba, close to the same, diving into that lane of Kampala. This is where you can see where I am. From Freedom City front page in Namasuba as well, moving along, you get to realize that from that spot there is less traffic interactions. You can easily see the green spots that are indicative of the fact that there is a smooth flow of traffic. Moving away from that, after Freedom City and then moving close to Chibuye, you get to realize that there is some bit of a red, notification, which is indicative of the fact that there is some traffic standstill at the same, that is close to the Nyondo Club and then the Kenjoy supermarket. Now moving forward, you get to realize that you will experience some huge traffic from Busabala, from the Busabala Road, and then close to Chibuye. Still huge traffic, especially for those who are heading to Kampala at the same spot. From there, Rubis Chibuye service station, Kampala Entebbe Road. Now let's also try to go to what is coming in from those that are leaving Makindye using that route of Mobutu Road. You get to realize for those who are coming in from Makindye using Shell, around Shell Makindye, still there is less traffic in there, less traffic congestion, so you can easily move smoothly. So that means for anyone who is coming in from Monyonyo side, you can use the Makindye route coming out of Chibuye, at the Chibuye roundabout, because the only way that you will also experience traffic will be around Muganzi Raza building. But besides that, there is a long journey, there is actually a smooth ride for you into the capital, moving along the Kampala Clock Tower or Kampala flyover for those who are going in there. Katwe Road, you get to realize that there is also some bit of a traffic standstill around the MK General Stores, and then that is along the Katwe Road as you're dropping off the Mutebi Road. And then away from that, as you're moving further, you'll realize that the only other busy spot is the Queensway. Remember, there is a little bit of a traffic change with the fact that there are some developments ongoing around Usafi Market. But at the Queensway, you realize that there's a little bit of traffic standstill. That red sign, the red that is indicative of the traffic standstill. But along the journey, you realize that the Kampala flyover, there is smooth running for all that are heading to either Zambia, those also heading far beyond, heading to Ginger Road and the like. Well, that is it from our traffic updates this morning. You can choose which preferred route you can get, but we highly expect some of a huge standstill in most of the traffic, the traffic collection areas, if that is the best word for me to use this particular moment. But we do expect some, huge traffic upset between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. simply because it's a Monday, and well, it's a new week really. After the break, when we do return, we talk matters e-taxation here on our GMU agenda. Stick around. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Was brought to you by
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock on my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hustle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting it. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable. On Wednesday, the 1st of May 2024, Uganda will join the rest of the world to commemorate the International Labour Day, a day celebrated to recognize the contribution of labour towards the socio-economic and political development of the country. This year's celebrations will be held at Mukabura Grounds in Fort Portal City on the theme, Improving Access to Labour Justice, a prerequisite for increased productivity. The celebrations will be cast live on UBC TV, all our radio stations and social media platforms. Don't miss. Happy Labour Day.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Juko. Yo. Hawachikuwa. Man.
Uganda wange. Haven't you had development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Joko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, a documentary film about our unity as Ugandans and Africans.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are the same people and genetically we are even the same people.
We are similar people.
We are one.
Pamoja, we are one.
Use that word, pamoja.
Premiering every week from 3rd February to June 2024 at the National Theatre and Indere Center. Daily screenings are from 4th February to June 2024 at Ham Cinemax and the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good to have you back, and I'm glad to be enjoying your company as our dear viewer this morning. As we're coming to you live from Broadcast House here on Good Morning Uganda, it is now time for us to go into our Good Morning Uganda agenda. Joining me this morning, I have Ibrahim Bossa, who is the Assistant Commissioner, Public and Corporate Affairs from the Uganda Revenue Authority, into our topic of discussion today, which is looking into understanding of e-tax and pretty much getting into deeper understanding and the knowledge behind IFRIS, or the Electronic Physical Receipting and Invoicing System, or solution, if that is the better word to put it. And well, to you, our trader, this is a topic that you would definitely wish to be part of, and to all the other viewers who are following the various strikes by the traders. As we speak e-tax and everything, you need to also cope up with IFRIS and then try to understand the differences between the taxes available and the various mechanisms that the Uganda Revenue Authority is putting in place to ensure that the Ugandans are tax compliant. A very good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on UBC.
Okay. Speaking of e-tax, by the way, before even going to IFRIS, e-tax, electronic taxation. Today, many of the governments, you've always been sharing this, that many of the countries have rolled out electronic systems world over because of the trend, the changes in technology. First of all, take us back into URA's journey, you know, to transition to e-tax, and how far are we?
Thank you very much. Revenue mobilization is can be a daunting task, especially without technology. And if you see in the past, some 30 years ago, everything used to be manual. You know, you're dealing with manual ledgers. If you are verifying receipts, it has to be a manual process. It basically created a burden and also was a huge cost in terms of revenue mobilization. Along the way, with the technology transformation around the world, many revenue mobilizers have seen the need, the benefit, to be able to reduce their cost of tax administration, also increase their efficiency by adopting technology. At the Uganda Revenue Authority, this has worked very well for us. If you see the kind of technology innovations we have had over the last 10 years, especially in revenue mobilization at URA, we have, for example, right now the use of an e-tax system, and this e-tax system basically integrates all our operations that are collecting the mandatory tax collections, but also those tax collections that we call the non-tax revenue that are usually collected by other government agencies. So you have a system where payments can be channeled, can be verified, and can be accounted for very efficiently. So this does not only help the Uganda Revenue Authority or our sister agencies, but it also helps the customer, because the e-tax system has been able to support platforms that have enabled taxpayers to quickly, efficiently, and conveniently be able to pay their fare of tax. So today, for example, the Uganda Revenue Authority does not handle cash at any one point in time. So payments can be made through electronic transfers, you can pay through mobile money, you can pay using a USS code, *285#, and you can pay your taxes, or you can pay through Payway or through Visa. So this also has helped us to fight and reduce first the customer journey, but also fight integrity issues. Every time where people have to get face-to-face with money, usually there would be integrity issues. So that is something that has been helpful. So that has been transformed into, for example, currently, in the past, for example, everybody needs a tax identification number if you're going to interact with the Uganda Revenue Authority. And it used to take people about a month before you could get a tax identification number. And it could actually cost you money because the process was so cumbersome, nobody wanted to deal with it. You had to download a spreadsheet from the website. It had 80 fields for you to fill. You enable macros, then upload. If you've made a mistake, all these things were very cumbersome. With technology today, you can now get a TIN that is instant, that is free, because of you basically having a national identification number.
On the issue of the TIN, who is supposed to be having a TIN?
Excellent. Ideally, anybody in Uganda who has an income, if you basically are either employed or you do some form of business and you generate income, you ought to have a TIN. Income in Uganda is generated largely in three ways: either through employment, either where they have property that is rentable property, or you actually have a business that generates income through value. Anybody who has an income, because by law you are expected to pay some income tax, you will need a tax identification number. Also, people who usually do some one-off transactions, like if you're going to import a car, if you're going to do a land transaction today, you will require a TIN. I think moving forward, there are already discussions that are going on to see that we are going to be able to merge the tax identification number with the national identification number, so that your national identification number ideally becomes your transactional ID when dealing with the Uganda Revenue Authority.
Okay.
That will mean that everybody, as long as you're national with a national identification number, you'll be able to transact on anything tax as and when it's applicable.
Now, when we talk about electronic taxation as well, looking into declaring taxes, or let's start with the simplest way. When a trader is declaring, or a tax compliant citizen is declaring, how has electronic tax, or how has the e-tax systems that have been put in place by URA made it easier over the years?
Oh, that is beautiful, because different taxes have different obligation dates for somebody to be able to file a return. We have taxes that people file annually, like the income tax. We have taxes that are filed monthly, like the pay-as-you-earn. VAT is also filed monthly. So depending on the due dates, rental income, while it is filed annually, usually there are some provisional returns that are expected. So it depends on the filing date. But what has happened, especially with technology today, if let us give an example for VAT. VAT is filed every month, and it is filed the 15th day of the next month following the month you're filing. So like for VAT for this month will be due next month on the 15th, right? Now, when you are using technology and digital systems today, like the electronic physical receipting and invoicing, remember that you are doing transactions on a daily. Basically, you're doing purchases, you're doing sales. All these transactions are being stored, they're being physicalized. A copy of these transactions is kept at URA, just like it is kept for you on the system. When filing day comes, all these transactions will appear in your pre-filled forms, filing forms. So when you go to the website and you put your TIN number and password, you will generate a pre-filled form of all the transactions you have done during the month, and all you have to do is to verify that yes, they are correct. I may have some amendments I may want to do, or some additions, and all I do is file. So you can always file on time, you can be sure not to file late, and even when it comes, for example, to issues like credits, in the past for credits you have to basically collect all your receipts, okay, and invoices, and these will have to be verified one by one physically by a person, which is a tax person. Today, because all these transactions are digital and have been physicalized, I mean, their approval is made very easy for even to claim a return. And that is the power of technology. Okay. So things are much easier with technology. They're more transparent, because in the past, it more or less used to be like a haggle. You are haggling and discussing, this is what happened, this is what didn't happen. Yes. But here, the picture of the business is directly visible to both the taxman and yourself, and meeting your obligations is very quick. You cannot pay more than you ought to pay if you're using digital systems.
Let's talk about adaptability. How has it been over the years? You know, looking back at, let's say, 10 years down the road, and then with the various solutions, or let's say systems in place that the URA has been employing in regards to taxation and the like, how have the traders adapted to the various systems?
Interestingly, many of the systems have had a smooth adaptation process, especially, I think, the systems that do not affect the revenue on the side of the taxpayer. If you look at, for example, the instant TIN technology, this has been very powerful, because if you realize that this has been around for about 2 years now, and in the last 2 years, our addition to the tax register is almost 2 million. Remember, by 2020, we only had about 1.5 million taxpayers on the register. And that is for all the donkey years the institution had been around. So we had actually stagnated at some point in time in terms of growing the tax register. But now, through a program called the Tax Register Expansion Program, and the ease for taxpayers to be able to generate a TIN, we have seen this basically grow twofold, threefold, okay? And that is a very powerful thing. If you see the payment modes, we have got a USSD code, which is *285#, and we have seen a lot of payments, especially the presumptive payments, that have been able to be made through USSD, which means that people appreciate convenience, people appreciate a shorter customer journey in them meeting their obligations, and we have seen, I think, good results in that end. If you see the technologies we've used, especially in custom facilitation and of business and transactions at the border, in the past, it would take you more than 2 weeks to clear a container that was getting into the country. Today, if you have all your paperwork together, within 30 minutes, you can actually clear your cargo. If you probably, give or take, we are looking at a maximum of about a day or two to clear cargo.
Okay.
This is because we have non-intrusive inspection that basically can be able to verify information that is in a truckload without you loading and offloading at the expense of the taxpayer. All these we have seen at least an appreciation, increased volume of business. And this could also account to the fact that during COVID, when the economy was down and things were not performing well, still URA was able to grow revenue through normal flow. So that means we are still able to get the revenue that needed to be collected using the digital tracking stamps, using the electronic physical receipting and invoicing, because as long as you produced, we would know. If you made a sale, we would know. So there was some form of business that is going on, and we would have that visibility. It would have been difficult if you had no system at all, where somebody would just claim that, oh, you know, I didn't work today because we're in COVID and you know it. But if there was work going on, there were collection to be done, and we were collecting during COVID.
Okay.
So that shows you the power of technology and maybe how people have adapted to it.
Bossa, let's head to the border, the border posts, the different border posts. Let's say if we are to track cargo right from the ports, Mombasa, and then Tanzania, that is Dar es Salaam, we do have URA officers situated that side. How possible has it been, or how effective, that is the better word to use, how effective has technology been for those who are actually receiving cargo and sending it into inland Uganda?
There has been tremendous improvement, especially in terms of the security of the cargo. And security means the safety of the cargo, but also to navigate the challenges of dumping of cargo. Some people can actually bring in cargo and dump it, and also probably reducing and fighting the aspects of smuggling. So today we have the RECTS program, and it's a regional tracking electronic program where cargo is tagged as long as it hits the port, first port of entry, whether it's Mombasa or Dar es Salaam. It is tagged and it is monitored all through the way until it is in Uganda. We are able to see basically in real time when cargo is moving, if it stops, if it is stopping in a non-designated location. We always have teams that would react to that to find what the problem is. Is it a breakdown, or somebody is doing something fishy? So that has been very powerful. So issues of cargo loss and so on are things that we have tremendously reduced to see that business facilitation goes on. We have gone all the way even to the warehousing and developed systems like the bonded warehouse information management system. That is an in-house developed system by the technocrats, the technicians in the Uganda Revenue Authority. In the past, people used to bring cargo into the warehouses and they would keep it for quite some time, but for unscrupulous reasons. All of a sudden, cargo changes names, it changes characteristics, it changes the weight, and sometimes could even disappear from a bond. So we now have a system that manages whatever goes in, whatever goes out. We know the quantities, we know the characteristic and things of the like. And those are tremendous improvements. It is good for revenue mobilization, but also offering a level playing field for businesses, because some people are good at, making use of the cracks within a system to take advantage of it, which is to a disadvantage of their competitors. So these technologies have been able to stabilize and create some certainty in the way we basically operate, especially in customs.
All right, now let's talk matters IFRIS, the electronic physical receipting and invoicing solution. Since its rollout, how compliant have those supposed to be under the system been? What are some of the shortfalls within the entire system? And then along the way, what is the way forward? Still looking at IFRIS.
Interesting. As we speak today, IFRIS has been here since, first of all, maybe it is important for people to know, when we're talking IFRIS, we're talking about a technology that supervises the collection of value-added tax. Value-added tax has been in the country since 1st July 1996. So we have had it here for 28 years plus. And in the past, of course, everything used to be done manually, and we know what the challenges have been. If you look at countries that adopted technology much faster than us, say for example, if you look at countries like Kenya, Kenya has had IFRIS since around 2008.
The same kind of system we're having?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. They have had the technology. For them, they call it the e-tax register.
Okay.
It has been around since 2008. So they've been able to monitor VAT since that long. Countries like Rwanda have been able to have, they call it an electronic billing system, and it has been around since 2013. And other countries, Tanzania has also had it for quite some time, over 10 years. So these people have been able, or these countries have been able to collect VAT revenue in interesting amounts. Currently, on average, the three countries, VAT is contributing about 33% to their total revenue collection for the year. And that is a staggering amount. And it reflects what's happening around the world. There are 166 countries around the world that use the value-added tax system, and still their collections, VAT is the biggest collection of all the other taxes. In Uganda, it is different, because our VAT collections today contribute only 15% to our total collection. And actually, we have only made progress to the 15% probably in the last 2 years. We have been languishing at about 13%. So how is it possible that a tax that is performing tremendously well within the other neighboring East African countries and around the world performs so poorly here? And the gap is the technology. So we also onboarded technology in 2018, which was introduced here, but we did not implement it until 2021. Firstly, because of COVID, but two, also we needed some time to be able to train, build capacity, and also give the traders, especially the businesses, the capacity to be able to acquire the technology for us to be able to implement. So in 2021, we started the rollout and implementation. And it happened in a phased manner. In a phased manner in such a way, we started with the importers, with the manufacturers, government institutions, and we went on cascading downwards to hotels, we went to supermarkets, and this kind of business, until we have gotten down to wholesalers and the type of businesses we have in Chikubo. And the adoption has actually been interesting, because today, remember, for you to be obligated to use IFRIS, you have to be a VAT-registered taxpayer. And a VAT-registered taxpayer in Uganda is one that has an annual turnover, gross, of 150 million shillings and above. And this is interesting because if you are not meeting that threshold, you're not obligated to transact in VAT or even to use IFRIS, right? Today, we have 73,000 users of IFRIS. But the ones who are VAT registered are only 34,000. You get the trick?
Yes, I'm
so
getting it.
that also gives you, if you look at that number, that we also have a considerable number of non-VAT registered taxpayers that are also using IFRIS. And you would wonder, why would 40,000 businesses be using IFRIS when they're not obligated to do so, if it is really such a bad technology?
Okay.
So you would realize that there are benefits of IFRIS that have attracted other businesses to be able to use it and for us to be able to move forward. There has been an issue about the threshold, and currently I think even the traders are requiring the government to lift the threshold. But you would want to appreciate, and for Ugandans, that if you look at the thresholds in Kenya, the threshold for VAT is 129 million. In Tanzania, the threshold for VAT is about 300 million. All that is equivalent to Uganda shillings. In Rwanda, the threshold for VAT is 63 million, equivalent of Uganda shillings. What that tells you is that at 150 million for Uganda, we are measuring well within the scale. So it is not really such a bad idea at the end of the day. So you'll find that IFRIS has come to basically do a couple of things for business and for government. One, as a business, electronic transactions are so powerful today that when you are transacting as a business, one, you're able to manage your stock. Many of the businesses in Uganda that fail, that are struggling, have a challenge with bookkeeping, keeping records, getting to know how much you have in stock is a very big problem. And here we have a technology that helps you to do it without even employing an accountant. Many businesses today, especially the small ones, have a challenge in sales management, managing what you sell. Many people actually expect that you can't even move away from your shop simply because somebody may sell without you being
without
present.
your knowledge.
Thank you very much.
And you would lose your stock.
IFRIS comes with a sales management package because everything you sell is digitized, is fiscalized, which helps you. That means you can even manage multiple businesses that are spread all over the country at the end of the day. IFRIS helps any business in terms of filing returns because your information is readily available, it is digital information. This information has already been shared with the taxman. So filing a return is more or less click of a button. Yet we have seen many businesses have been struggling with filing returns, getting penalties because of late refiling. You wait to file at the last moment, you're figuring with the system. There is an overload of the system because everybody is a last-minute person. With IFRIS, your information is readily available, already available with the taxman, and all you have to do is submit a return, which I think is very powerful at the end of the day. So it offers transparency, one for your business, and I know some people have had issues saying, but you see, the level of transparency for IFRIS, I may not want my employees to understand the workings of my business, issues of my stock, and how much I have in my stock, or the value I obtained with my stock. And IFRIS is magical. You can actually select different rates, give rates to different users within your organization on IFRIS. If you don't want somebody to look at your stock management, you do not give them, you just give them rights to the sales aspect of it.
Okay.
So it is that flexible and very powerful.
But so looking at IFRIS, many of the traders today think, or some businesses are treating it as a tax. Not the majority, I should say, because there are those who already understand what IFRIS entails and what it stands for, its benefits and the like. What is the difference? Because we really need to understand, why are some people saying this is a tax? Many look at it as an indirect sort of tax.
True.
If you can clearly give us a clear definition or the difference between a taxation bit of it and why IFRIS isn't a tax at all.
I think the starting point we need to appreciate that when VAT was first introduced in Uganda, it was fought by the traders. We all more or less got similar strikes like we're having when VAT was introduced. We are now seeing this on the technology adoption that is supposed to supervise VAT.
Okay.
So you realize that the first coloration you need to see that there could be segments of the market that probably are fighting IFRIS simply because it is supervising a tax that they did not want in the first place.
Oh, true.
Okay. 2, VAT is a consumption tax that is assessed at various stages, either of production or distribution. Now, that is where I think many of our traders also are struggling to appreciate. Bottom line, a business that is registered for VAT does not pay VAT. They collect VAT. And how? For every input in your business, there will be inputs that have a VAT component, meaning that your business will have spent on VAT. You are expected as a business to charge VAT on your sales. Now, how a business does not incur VAT is that for whatever you have charged for VAT, remember you collect, isn't it? But for you to remit to URA, you have to first reduce it by every input of VAT you have incurred. If you paid VAT on the products you are selling, if you paid VAT on electricity, if you paid VAT on rent, if you paid VAT on water, you first reduce that from what you have collected from your sale. The balance is what you give to URA. And the balance comes in 2 ways. You may find yourself in a positive position, so there is some money to give to URA, or you may find yourself in a negative position and you may have to claim a refund from URA. In effect, the company's profitability, operating costs, cash flows are not affected by VAT. Businesses registered for VAT are simply collectors. Now, remember, because this happens at any stage, if it is a manufacturer, they will go through the same. If I'm a distributor, I will go through the same. If I'm a wholesaler, I will go through the same. Even as a retailer, I will do the same. I will always first reduce whatever I collect from VAT by how much I have incurred, so that for me, as a business, I do not pay anything. Now, that multiple stage is what people confuse to be double taxation. Some people call it triple taxation. And that is why IFRIS is the game changer. Because IFRIS will be able to make that calculation for you.
Okay.
At the end of the month, you don't have to make any computation. As long as you log in with your purchases and you sell through IFRIS, at the end of the day, you will know how much VAT you either owe or what you need to claim. And that's the power. So IFRIS is a system that enables people to manage VAT transactions. So it is not a tax.
All right.
VAT is the tax being supervised.
Okay. And I do hope our viewer there has pretty much got to understand the difference between IFRIS and taxation. So it's a system that will enable you to follow up on your VAT and try to manage your VAT as well as your stock, if I'm to put it in that way. Let's look at some of the initiatives that the Uganda Revenue Authority has been putting in place to ensure that the traders get to understand IFRIS, because some traders believe that the efforts have been less over the years, and that's why some of them don't understand it. Or that's why some of them are against IFRIS. Others are saying it is making it even more difficult for them to stay afloat in their business. What are the efforts? What have you been doing?
Yes. Before I detail what we've been doing, I think it is important because we have seen concerns where people do not understand the issue of value added when we're talking about VAT. Now, there are 3 forms of value addition. You may have what we call place utility. If in terms of distribution, if I get a good from one place to another, that means I am making it available for people who did not have it in the first place. If you import a vehicle from abroad. That vehicle was not available here. Once you bring it to our ecosystem here, it has now been made available, and that's why they pay VAT at importation. That is place utility. We also have farm utility, that is processing. I am manufacturer of sugar, so I will get sugar cane and take it through a process to be able to have a product, so I will have added value in terms of a processing. I may have bread and I'm able to brand it, and basically it changes form, it changes the appearance in terms of branding and appeal, and I'm able to sell it for much more. So that is also it. We also have the time utility. Time utility is how quickly can I get something? I think you have seen what the people in Chikubo do. I come, I'm looking for something, I don't know where to get it, but somebody actually knows where they can get it very quickly for you.
And then you give them money, someone runs away, picks it for you. And
that is time utility. Being able to get, so that also is a form of value add. Now, what have we done?
Yes.
To make sure that the traders are able to onboard on IFRIS. Now, URA has a comprehensive tax education strategy and plan. Currently, it is sector-based to make sure that each sector we are able to address the unique needs. And it takes a broad spectrum of channels. First of all, we are very emphatic because a lot of the tax issues will need a face-to-face interaction. And you'll find that usually we organize what we call door-to-door engagements. Usually we move with associations, visiting their members. If it is in Chikubo, if you look at the last 3 months, we have visited 110 arcades, moving door to door of each shop and basically engaging with the traders in there. On record, we have at least over 15,000 traders who signed our register as having gotten assistance from us on a door-to-door engagement. We do what we call workshops, or many people will call seminars. Here we usually invite the businesses or traders, and we're able to engage with them. These seminars are good, especially for feedback mechanisms, and people learn even from others and others' experiences. Last 3 months alone, we have done over 81 workshops in Chikubo, just because of IFRIS. But this we do for a lot of other tax sessions, as you may know it. We also make sure that we take advantage of gatherings or platforms that give us an opportunity to engage with the wider public. So you will find us at expos. You will find us, if you hear like the POESA Expo, we are a permanent feature there. We're one of the biggest sponsors of the POESA, simply because it congregates traders. You'll find us at the UMA exhibition and many other exhibitions that are done, whether by Casita and others. We are participants because we want to engage, we want to teach. So we are there to do that face-to-face. But we also know that in Uganda, the biggest platform that people actually listen to is the radio.
Yes.
At the Uganda Revenue Authority, on average, in a week, we do an average of 30 radio talk shows every week around the country. We're basically educating, we're engaging, we're getting feedback, and that kind of sensitization becomes very critical. We are very big, especially when it comes to reaching the underserved areas that may not have our regional offices, that may be hard to reach. We have 2 mobile buses. These ones we call mobile tax offices. We have named them Tujenge. And these Tujenge basically go to towns, to markets around the country, basically to be able to bring tax education, to bring tax services nearer to the people. Just like they say, if Muhammad cannot go to the mountain will come to Muhammad. You can say.
All right. And lastly, Mr. Boss, I want to get through some of these comments here. And there is also someone here who is asking a question that I wish you will answer or reply to. This is Talema Sam from Masindi. Say thanks for the program. Thank you for watching. Then this one says, IFRIS is a great technology and all Ugandans must embrace it. The only problem is on the penalty fee. 6 million is simply unrealistic and shows lack of understanding what's really on ground. The solution is to write a budget that is realistic. URA is forced to meet a budget that is wasteful. and the president guided on how to bring unnecessary expenditure, but the administration failed to implement it. Let's have a particular national office to supervise this directive. But URA, please keep it up. This one says that, secondly, let electricity board internet providers also take responsibility for their failure to provide services to enable this technology to succeed. I think he means IFRIS. They have been around for enough time to perfect their trade, but they are simply corrupt, he chooses to say. You didn't leave your name, but thanks for the comment. Ibrahim Bossa will be replying to that as well in regards to the penalties. Then this other person says, to my opinion, the introduction of e-tax was to reduce on corruption. How relevant are clearing agents in e-tax and IFRIS today? This is Oputo George in Tororo. Thank you, Oputo. Then one last comment. Good morning. Can data entry for IFRIS be outsourced for individuals, a third-party company capturing data for SMEs in a locality? This is David answering. Can data entry for IFRIS be outsourced, he asks?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
It can be. Usually you have to be cautious of who you are giving rights and access to this data, but it can be sourced because some companies have given rights to their agents to be able to manage their IFRIS data for them rather than managing it themselves.
And then this other concern was coming in from the fact that this one says the only problem is on the penalty fee. Just recently, the president advised that the penalties should be withheld for the time being. Now, this one is saying the 6 million is simply unrealistic and shows that URA doesn't have enough understanding of what is really on ground. For
I think it's a good concern and has been raised with the president, but I think our viewers need to know that anything to do with tax is policy. URA does not institute penalties. A penalty is part of the policy that was put in place to deter people who may otherwise misuse the system. So penalties are also part of amendments that come with the law, and therefore our members of parliament usually will have a stake in that. URA will only implement that which has been provided by law. And it is true, the penalty of 6 million may seem prohibitive, and I think at some point probably it was being misused because people were being penalized several times within a week or so. But luckily enough that the Tax Appeals Tribunal has ruled over that, and you can only be penalized once for a violation in IFRIS. So meaning that the 6 million penalty can only be issued once and not multiple times within, say, a given week or within a given month. Now, that is a very critical aspect. But two, 6 million is big for a trader in Chikubo who may be transacting with a receipt that is 50,000, that is 10,000 shillings, to be issued a penalty of 6 million, right?
Yes.
But that could actually be very insignificant for a company that is manufacturing sugar, that is a telecom company, that actually whose invoices will be in the billions. Actually, in other jurisdictions we have seen, some companies can even budget for that penalty. They know that I am doing a wrong that will bring in some 50 billion shillings, and all I can be penalized is either 6 million or thereabout. So it depends on who you're looking at in terms of scale, and I think we have been guided rightly, even by His Excellency. Even we as tax administrators, we need to be cautious and prudent the way we basically exercise these kind of policies.
All right. And to you, our dear viewer, thank you very much for being part of this conversation this morning that we've been having. An insight into e-taxation by the Uganda Revenue Authority and pretty much understanding IFRIS. And of course, for those who have sent in the views and the comments, I couldn't go through all the rest, but thank you very much for following up with what we've been having. And this morning, as we were looking at electronic taxation and understanding IFRIS, the electronic physical receipting and invoicing solution, but also earlier we had tried to break down e-taxation in general and trying to see what other narratives or initiatives that the URA has been able to place in here. I've been having Ibrahim Bossa, who's the Assistant Commissioner, Public and Corporate Affairs from the Uganda Revenue Authority. Thank you very much, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, coming up shortly is the Good Morning Uganda Sports with Ruben Mpima. Stick around. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Was brought to you by
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting. Use the Momo